Hello? You're late. Are you ready for the tutorial? Excellent. I will be right back. Don't touch anything.
Hey, you've got to get me out of here. Quick, before he comes back.
I said, don't touch anything.
Hello and welcome to the tutorial. I'm your host, Zach. In this video, I'm going to explain how to do that style that you just saw. I'm also going to yap a little bit, so if you don't want to listen to it all, or there's a specific part that you're interested in, I will provide a table of contents, and the chapters will be below for you to navigate. First, I want to talk about the style a little bit. I've called it the mollymoonn effect because she was the first person I saw do it, and I was like, oh, I want to replicate that. But I'm sure other creators are doing it, have done it. I know for a fact that she is not doing it anymore. She posted a video that explained like how she doesn't have passion for it anymore. Her main thing is that she's an adult film actress, which I didn't know before I started researching this video, but now I know, and I did browse the catalog. It was a little too normie for me, but if your only takeaway from this video is that you really want to see the spooky girl's butthole, you can do that for $4.99. But anyway, there are other creators that are doing similar things. Luca Big Pants, for example, is doing a similar style, but his is, instead of collaging with still images, he's collaging with video snippets. So I think if you follow this tutorial but you modify it slightly, you could replicate his style pretty closely. But all of these effects are recalling like a 90s FMV style, which is like full motion video, the Command and Conquer type thing. But I think we're all collectively remembering it being this way, because if you look up any clips of the games that people reference when they're like, oh, this is what this is emulating, they're all better quality. Like, we're actually recreating something that's like way worse than it ever actually was. So I don't know what that's about. I'm sure there are some examples that more closely resemble this style, in which case please share them, because I would love to check out more things that are like this. Alright, so what I'm going to do is walk you through the steps that I took to recreate this effect, but I'm also going to show you what about the mollymoonn videos indicated to me that this was something that needed to be done. I think that's super helpful, so that if you ever needed to apply this kind of analysis to another effect, you sort of have the framework of which to do that. It's also helpful because if you use something other than Adobe Premiere, you'll be able to sort of apply the broad strokes to that software. For example, you'll need to cut out the bodies. There's probably an easy way to do that within your software, and it's easy for you to find that out as long as you know that that's the step you need to take. So anyway, my tutorial is going to be in Premiere, but broad strokes I think will be applicable to any software. So the first thing I want to show you is my filming setup, because there are some things you need to take into consideration when you're filming. Okay, quick set rundown. This is what we got going on. My stand-in, so that I can do focus and set the light. Camera on a tripod. The tripod is really the only thing that's super important. The light is here just because I have a light and it's just gathering dust all of the time, so I might as well put it into action. But the tripod is the most important thing for this effect, because you don't want stuff moving around. I'm also using my Sony because it lets me lock in settings and nothing changes, because I did this effect with my phone, and the auto changing of the settings like really made things kind of weird, like the focus changed and the white balance and stuff. So using the mirrorless camera helped alleviate a lot of that. And I want to reiterate, the camera is not actually that important. It does make it easier to do this effect if your settings are locked down. But the first test that I did when trying to figure out how to do this effect was with my iPhone. I'll put that video up right now. So you can see it's perfectly possible to do on your phone. You're not really limited in that way. It does make it easier if you have a better camera, but you don't have to have one. So the next important question you have to ask yourself is, what am I actually filming? For me, I needed to film a blank background because I will be cutting out everything and putting it on top, which is something mollymoonn does some of the time when she, I think, is using fake backgrounds. We will be coming back to that later on. So I knew I needed a blank background. I knew that I needed me moving out of the room and coming back, and the way mollymoonn does that is just by jump cutting And so I needed to get those shots. And to do that, I would just walk and then pause, walk and then pause, walk and then pause. It's helpful to keep in mind that what you're replicating is still images. You're taking video because it's way easier to do this by yourself if you're just recording video as opposed to taking a picture every move. But what you're ultimately doing is you're posing for pictures that you will then take in Premiere. So you want to move, pause, take a picture. Move, pause, take a picture. You want to be pretty still to minimize the amount of motion blur. Another thing you can do is turn up your shutter speed. A higher shutter speed will reduce motion blur when you're moving. Little pro tip there. Yeah, I gotta show off that I'm an honor student. Stupid. Once you've filmed the move, it's time to move on to the most important part of this style, and that's the mouth. If you look at Molly Moonn's videos, only the mouth moves, nothing else on the body moves. So what you need to do is you need to take a still plate of your body with your mouth closed. We'll call this the plate. That's basically the background that everything else gets stacked on top of. And then you want to take an image of your mouth open like this. And so those two images going back and forth are what make the mouth move. At its simplest, any other motion is the exact same. Eyes closed, one shot open. And so then you will cut them out and put them on top. Sometimes in Molly Moonn's videos, they're actually two completely different pictures, but for me, I couldn't stand still enough, so I cut them all up and just pasted them on one still image. A huge nuance for this effect is adding emotion. The more emotion you can put in, the more work it's going to be down the road to like cut things out. But it really adds a lot. Like here, you can see Molly Moonn is reacting to the things popping up, and that just adds a lot of life to this effect. And so if you can do that, I recommend it. Lastly, in terms of filming, you're gonna wanna film any kind of camera moves or objects that you might want. And so camera moves are the exact same as body movements. You just take a picture, take a picture, take a picture. And then this Furby, for example, is one that I knew that I was going to make an object. So I lit it up brighter than the background and I just filmed it for a second because I knew I was going to cut it out. And then once you've done all this, it's time to bring your footage into Premiere. And I'm going to stop recording on this because for some reason it keeps getting fucked. So once you load the media into Premiere, you're going to want to open it in the source monitor and navigate to whatever the first still image is going to be. And then, like we talked about earlier, you're posing for pictures that you will then take in Premiere. We're going to take a picture. In order to take a picture, you want to click this export frame button. If you don't see it, it's probably hidden. You want to click this plus, and then you'll find it in this pop-up, and you want to drag it down to the toolbar. Click that, boom, the export frame pop-up comes up. You want to name it something that helps you easily identify whatever this image is. And if there's going to be a series of images, I normally give them a number. Then you want to pick a place on the Finder where you're going to put these. I made a stills folder in my project so it can be organized. And the most important thing you want to click is this import into project. That way it automatically brings it in to your project when you hit OK. And there you go. You can see I've done this a couple of times because the recording keeps getting messed up, but there is the exported still that you've taken. You can add to your sequence and move on to the next step, which is of course to start adding in the character. Now Premiere 26.2.2 has a really cool new feature called the Object Mask Tool. And it lets you just select objects by clicking on them. And once you've selected the mask, you just drag it down in the effects controls to opacity. And look, I'm completely rotoed out and I didn't have to do any pen tool work, but the pen tool is coming. So the next step is to drag on the open mouth onto your newly rotoed closed mouth plate. And what we're going to do is we're going to click down here where it says pen mask tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut out the open mouth. Now, this is sort of where you can decide how anal you want to be about this. You can be really, really close and make it super hidden, or you can just be like, good enough, it's supposed to look bad. The more hidden it is, the more fine your pen tooling is, the longer it will take, but the more likely you are to go to heaven. So do with that whatever you'd like. If you're using another program like After Effects or Photoshop or something, there's probably easier ways to do this. For me, this is what I did, and sometimes I was more anal than other times. Basically, the only thing you really want to be mindful of is that if you go overboard on the feathering, the compression will highlight that. So just maybe be light on the feathering. And then I basically did the exact same thing with the pen tool on the arms, on the eyes. Everything sort of is a variation of this same thing. And again, you can be as anal with it. I gotta stop saying anal in this video. You can be as particular or as lax as you want. And if for some reason your cutout doesn't exactly line up with the plate underneath, you can lower the opacity of the topmost item and scooch it around with the position. If you're changing the position though, you just want to be mindful of items in the background. Like, it'll be really noticeable if some of the picture frame is in the wrong position in the cutout. And so quickly here you can see the final timeline where I have hidden the background, and you can see the cutouts that I've done where I've cut out the arms and the eyes. It's also important to work smarter and not harder. Here you can see that I've literally just reused the arm cutouts from the beginning and just have reversed them for the putting down motion. Alright, and so the next distinct feature of this style is to have objects that are very clearly not in the space. And this stems from point and click games where the background is usually pre-rendered, so it's its own flat image, and then the objects on top are assets that exist separately, and so they're usually more noticeable. I want to address the elephant in the room, and it's that I think mollymoonn uses AI. I'm very confident actually that a lot of AI is used in this, and it's because it makes it way easier. Like, to create creepy looking weird objects, it's way easier to just have AI do that than to make it yourself. These items I'm pretty sure are AI items. This is definitely AI, this effect, the items. And then I'm pretty sure like this clock looks like it's AI. And then this, I'm not actually sure if it's AI. I don't really know how they did this at all, actually. I'll be perfectly honest with you. This one stumped me. But anyway, as you know, I am staunchly anti-AI. I hate it. And so I will be creating my weird stuff in Blender. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to use Blender. I'm just going to provide a link to a really good resource video in the description. This is literally the video that I followed to make this plant. The good thing is that it looking bad adds to the weirdness, so you do not have to be good at it at all. In fact, it's better if you're bad. And then all you need to do is export a PNG with transparency of your object, and I exported mine from the back, the side, and then the front, and then an open mouth and a closed mouth, which allowed me to animate it stop motion style in the finished piece. Blender is also how I made this creepy little pie guy that's hidden in the background of the video. To make the items highlight when they are hovered over by the cursor, what I did was I just made it a little bit larger for a couple of frames, and then I duplicated that larger version and dragged it above, and I added a lumetri effect where I turned it a little bit yellow and increased the exposure, and I did the same thing to the Furby. The text is literally just the text tool within Premiere. The cursor icon I found on a free clip art download site. I just googled it. And to make it move, I literally just keyframe the position over time. The backpack is a clip art icon. These are clip art icons. It's literally just one that I flipped horizontally, and then to make it active when it's clicked, I just made it smaller. I made these buttons on Photoshop, and the way that they work is sort of like the pot and the Furby. I just made a lumetri effect on them for a couple of frames where they got darker, and when they're hovered over, they get larger, and when it's clicked, it gets smaller. So to make the button in Photoshop, you just start a new Photoshop project and you create a rectangle with the rectangle tool. You just drag one over and then you sort of try to center it best you can. And then once that's where you want it, you come up to Windows and you go to Styles. And then over here, if you click the hamburger, you'll see Legacy, Styles, and More. You click that and that will enable this sort of folder of things. And in here, there are some great button textures. There's one called buttons, but you don't necessarily have to use that one, but it creates perfect, like this kind of era UI buttons. And then you can also change the color, which will change the color inside the button, and you can just play around. It's pretty sweet. And then to add the text, I literally just created a text box on top of it and centered it. Another huge element of the mollymoonn effect, there are no small parts, is the audio. She always has this really interesting vocal sound.
Interested in some rare items?
And the way you do that is with bit crushing, and you can do it in GarageBand, which is free. So let me show you how to do that. First, you want to record the dialogue. I just used the voice note app on my phone, and I had Jake, who did the voice of the pot, record it on his phone and text it to me. So very lo-fi recording setup. Then you want to create a new line track in GarageBand that basically just creates an empty track for you to drag that recorded audio onto. Then you want to come down to where it says plugins, click that, and then you would go down to an empty slot basically and click that. And from there, you want to select distortion and then bit crush. And then I usually just select the preset chipped bits, and then I modify it so that it sounds good to me. The first time I did it, I crushed it way too much. It's better to be maybe on the lesser side so that you can still understand what they're saying. Sound effects are also huge. I use the Epidemic sound effect library because I use Epidemic for my music and stuff. Referral link in the description if you want to check it out. The more sound effects, the better. You just want to blast it with sound effects. Sometimes cartoony is better. You just want it to be kind of gross, a lot of squishes, a lot of crunches. This is really where you can like make it shine. Now the final step, which is truly the secret sauce, like this is what brings it all together. It adds that crunch, that flavor that elevates this to like a very stylized piece, is post-processing. The first thing you're going to want to do is add an adjustment layer across the entirety of your sequence. And to that adjustment layer, you're going to want to add an effect called posterize. And what this does is it reduces the total number of colors in your video. And so if you go really low, it reduces the colors to a point where it looks crazy. I landed on 10, but you can really finesse. 10 makes it pretty crunchy. If you want less crunch, but still like a visible, artistic choice style, you can go a little bit higher, but I chose 10. I like the way that that looks. This is really where you can find your own voice. Once I've done that, I like to export it very compressed because I like some compression artifacting. And so I export it at NTSC 480 wide, and I reduce the bitrate to like 1.8 or something. So I export it, I re-import it into the project, and I lay that video on the top track of my sequence. And I make sure to size it back up so that it fits a frame. And then I add an unsharp mask to that video track. And basically what that does is it just like sharpens the edges. It really just adds like a VHS kind of look to it that I absolutely love. And you can play around with these settings too, again, to taste pretty much. And then you export this video the way that you would export any other video, with your sound settings and your video settings the way that you normally like them. And bam, there you have it. You've done it. You've created a masterpiece. Finishing thoughts, if I were to do this again, I would add some more dynamic things, like mollymoonn normally has like flies or a bug or something running across the screen. I think that stuff is really cool. I think maybe I would add some more like Easter eggs in the background too. I really liked the little bits of that I did. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching this video. I hope that you make something cool. Please feel free to share with me all of the things that you create. I know this was a very dense and very long tutorial, but I think it's very fascinating. And I wanted to make sure I covered all of the bits. If you want to watch any of the videos that I mentioned in this video, I will link to them in the description. Huge shout out to Jake Tresser for voicing the pot. Couldn't have done it without you. That's it.
Space!